Hello, Mark. It's been a while. We're going to do just sort of this month, we're doing a series of just discussions in support of the cyber awareness. So by way of introductions, I am Kevin Bobroske. I'm the owner and founder of Lighthouse Integrations. We do cybersecurity, and we're starting to play around and dabble in the AI development world, which is a lot of fun. But for today, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity, and Marc Speed has been, a colleague of mine and worked together for quite a number of years. Marc has his own company of Timberwolf Infosec and has had some key roles, security roles in some very large organizations, both public and private, which I think creates a nice balance of, what can be done and should be done versus what the textbooks say. So I know that you've been working at a local gaming development company. That's sort of been, we haven't really dug into that too deeply, but I have to imagine that has given you some different insights into the world of cybersecurity and how to protect things. So what are some of the key things that you've learned in that role, and what sort of stories can you share with us on that?
I can't share a ton of stories with a lot of detail, but thanks for the intro. The focus being in a video game studio is a lot on protecting intellectual property. So I'm head of cybersecurity at SkyBox Labs. We do a lot of what they call co-development. So we work with some of the larger studios, Microsoft, Sony, Bungie, just name a few, Epic. And then we work with NetEase, Chinese gaming company. So they bought us a couple of years ago now. So a lot of that focus, because we do co-development, is protecting intellectual property. Some of the largest games that are out there: Halo Infinite, Minecraft, Fallout 76, Destiny 2. So generally a company, under 300 staff wouldn't have a whole cybersecurity department. But because we're working on those, there's a lot of security assessments and compliance work, as part of the whole contract negotiation process. So they want to know, not only just ticking boxes. Do you do this? Do you have a this? Where, an owner could just tick all the boxes and go, yep. It's like, no, do you have this policy? Let's see it. Upload it here. Right. And someone will review it and then get back to me and have follow-ups and other questions. Oh, what are you doing for this? What are you doing for that? So a lot of it's compliance work. And then, you need to do that work on the back end. So we need to make sure we're doing everything properly, make sure all the studios are happy with us, just following best practices. Working in core government, it's all private information focused.
Right.
So that was the big shift for me. Is like, we're not worried about privacy impact assessments. We're not worried about this. Because in our role, we won't have any of that, the purchaser, the end gamers info that the studios would have that. We're just working on code, art assets, design and stuff before the game comes out, and then, updates along the way.
That's interesting because depending on the industry, so you have the compliance piece, which really drives a lot of the initiatives that you need to do, because there's, it's somewhat of a check the box exercise. But I always sort of caution people when they look at that and they look at, doing a compliance based security program versus a risk based security program. And one of the things that I've always admired about your approach to it, because each environment is so different, you take a really balanced approach, and it's very pragmatic too. So, what are some of the 4 or 5 things that you can suggest that every company looks at, as opposed to just saying, do you have endpoint protection? Yes or no. Do you have this? What are some of the 4 or 5 things or pieces of advice that you could give any business owner? Because today's world is, it's getting tougher and tougher to detect, phishing emails and those types of things. So how do you truly kind of protect your business? And I know you can't do it in 4 or 5, but what are the main ones that you would recommend?
Doing it in 4 or 5 is kind of short. I needed like 10, but it's like, well, I can't have 10. You can't give people 10 things to do. So I think number one for me, and you'll see this on a lot of the lists for compliance, and I agree with you, just to go back there real quickly. Like, I say compliance is InfoSec C word. No one should utter it. It's bad. You're just ticking boxes. Like we just said, the risk-based approach is the best. And we'll get there in this discussion, I'm sure. But the first thing I would do is build an asset and software inventory. So just at a really high level, right out of the gate, you can't protect what you don't know you have. So if you don't know where your computers and your servers are, what software they have on them, is anything vulnerable? When's the last time this machine came online? Is it up to date? If you can't answer any of those questions, then you can't even start. So I think you could do this for low cost to no cost. Like I don't want to, really pimp products or anything in this call, but like there are free alternatives. Like I've been using Action One and rolling that out places lately because it's free for the first 100 endpoints. So then you get, you install an agent. That's all you got to do. You got to figure out how to deploy one piece of software to everything in your business, and now you have all the list when it was last online. You can do all the patching, vulnerability scanning, all that stuff from there. So if you're a company, as soon as you're too big to walk around and count things, like what's that, 15, 20 machines, then you need something else to do it.
Yeah.
Right. It's probably even less than that if you're worried about what's installed on them. So number one, build an asset and software inventory. The next biggest one, which I still see not done, is protect all remote access with MFA. So if you have a
Yeah.
VPN, you have something like TeamViewer or Parsec or some other remote access tool, uh, protect it with MFA. At a later step, I would say anything you log into, any SaaS app, anything should have MFA. But just right out of the gate as a starter, all remote access has to have MFA. I think the next one of the most important things, which is timely because it's Security Awareness Month, is security awareness. If you
Right.
can turn all your staff into little sensors deployed in your network that will notice something, if you build that security aware culture, then they'll tell you, hey Mark, is this okay? Hey Mark, I saw this. Hey, is this right? And you're like, no, that's not right. And you get knowledge of things before they become a problem, before they hit any of your dashboards with the red blinky lights, right? So I think that's really important. And they keep them thinking about it. We spent a lot of time at SkyBox building that security culture. And then what we've got now is, people start coming to you. Like, can I install this? Can we use this tool? Can I do this thing? And you're like, okay, let's talk about what that means and what controls you might need to wrap around it. So then they're coming to you instead of just doing it and you finding out later. I think sort of along the lines of the security awareness training is like filtering your emails for phishing, business email compromise, that type of stuff. So I don't think any of that's free. Like if you're already paying for, Google Workspace or M365, you're getting some of that. Generally, I don't think that's enough. Usually, you're having to go to the higher tiers of those products and buy the add-ons in Microsoft Azure to get the really good filtering, or you're buying something like Mimecast, Proofpoint, all those sorts of players in this market, huge market, just to get that filtering done. A lot of them are using AI and a whole bunch of stuff. The attackers are also. So something that just came up recently in the last 5-6 months is that attackers are using AI to build their phishing emails. So you can't rely on spelling mistakes
Yeah.
anymore. Those are gone. So you need something to stop those mails from hitting your mailbox, to stop being a problem. So we catch 99%. Right.
Yeah.
So they're right there. You've like significantly lowered that risk. The last one, keep your software updated. Like I'm sort of debating whether 5 should be EDR, endpoint protection, or updates. They're both pretty
Yeah.
close.
Yeah. And like you say, that to keep this down in a list of 5 is impossible. But I think that you've sort of touched on sort of the main ones. And no matter what, and we'll get into this in just a second, is we can put in the best solutions, sometimes the simplest ones, like you mentioned. There's some free solutions out there that get you the job done and make sure, so it's not always a pay per click when it comes to security. Sometimes you can, and even simpler approaches are, if you are small enough, you start with a spreadsheet, have some level of awareness in your inventory that, if you're small enough, you can manage that. It doesn't have to be the sexy dashboard that has everything in there and you just, it'll highlight red when things are wrong. It just doesn't work that way. You have to grow into that. But with the AI, do you see, like, obviously email, business email compromise, again, targeting people? So you'd mentioned the awareness, you mentioned being able to filter out as many as possible, but again, it's a game of cat and mouse when it comes to the hackers. You know, every step we take forward, you know, they seem to be taking two. You know, so it's I don't know if we're winning the game or not. I keep hoping that we are, and I hope that, you know, some of these videos help sort of set people on the right track, because it's very, very difficult. So with the AI, I know you guys are using it in your gaming world. What do you see as, first of all, the challenges that come with that? And secondly, some of the opportunities that we can start to leverage AI?
Yeah, I think it's still changing the world every day. You know, I have more and more people on my team and other teams, like they don't go to Google anymore. They go to ChatGPT and they ask the question there. And you know, I tried it for a bit and like it's wrong a lot. Or it's scraping old content that and stuff that doesn't make sense. And you're like, that's not right. I know how to do that, and that's not how that you do that. So you got to worry about that. I think the attackers are using it, like I said, to build emails and to sample more professional. They're also using it in automation. So just like we would, and with something like security orchestration, automation, and response, they're using it to chain together attacks and to automate their workflow and their steps, because there's a lot of manual stuff that goes on there. So there's whole platforms on the dark web that people sell, right? So like instead of an organization will go do a bunch of phishing, get a bunch of botnets, get a bunch of power and notoriety with their stuff, and then they'll go more legit and they won't do the hacking anymore. They'll sell their platform to somebody else. So they build web dashboards and accounts and everything, and you log in and you launch your attacks from there. So those are starting to use automation to chain parts of their techniques, tactics, and procedures together. So you don't always have to be at a keyboard when things happen.
Yeah.
I'm finding AI being used to try to get past captchas and being very successful, much more successful than anything else has in the past, and automating like man in the middle attacks on MFA.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen more of that. So there's no silver bullet when it comes to security, but when MFA came out, it was as close as we've had. But now I'm starting to see more and more attacks that, again, are targeting people, very clever phishing attacks, but are, you know, hijacking the tokens for the sessions. And now all of a sudden the MFA becomes useless, right? So like I say, there's doesn't seem to be any silver bullet anywhere, and there's no easy path forward. It was interesting when you mentioned about the emails. So one of the things that used to be very common was that the hackers used to use, floppy emails just to see if there's easy targets out there. Because if they really have to go to great lengths to be able to fool you, then the next step is going to be even tougher. So I thought that was pretty clever. But I think that now, as you mentioned, with the people, more and more people using detection tools to try to block that stuff, it picks up, the Proofpoint and Mimecast and all these pick that up pretty quickly. So they're starting to have to become a little bit more clever. The AI is helping them with that, which then makes the user awareness training even that much more. So with SkyBox and any company that you're working with, when you start talking about user awareness training, what does that kind of look like?
Generally, it comes with the platform that you're using for all your email protection, and some other people specialize in just awareness training. Like one of the things I've learned over the years is you just can't do a phishing test every month and make people watch 2 videos every September and then you're done. Like it's just not going to work. So you have to keep people engaged is one of the biggest things, right? So we do events, right? Like I'll show up at the office and we'll put something together and we'll do a lunch and we'll do sort of like lunch and learn, have people ask any security related questions they want. We'll, engage over Slack with announcements, just keeping people thinking. One of the things that we've done is with our phishing tests, we add anybody who reports the phish gets added to a draw, and we give out prizes every month. And like that boosted engagement huge, right? It's like, well, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to report all these damn things now. So
So the other side of it doesn't work anymore when you get the public shaming and you stick them on the wall and say,
yeah, so
Mark fell for this phishing email.
that's come up multiple times, both for like people not locking their workstations and people getting failing the phishing test. It's like, well, why don't we put them on the board? It's like it doesn't work. Like it just doesn't work. You need the positive reinforcement, and you want to really build that culture of like they're not mad at security. We're not adversarial. We're there to help. We're there to get them to learn how to do business. Just the research just shows that that doesn't work. So I just find I need to continually engage, right? October is like, because it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, is like a full-on month of engagement. Every week there's new posts, there's videos, there's things going on, there's a lot of chatter. And I just try to maintain that for as long as I can. Generally, I can see with the monthly phishing scores when I need to bump up engagement,
Oh, that's
whether it's
interesting.
targeted to specific groups or whatever, because it falls off, right? And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
why you don't do phishing tests once or twice a year, because they're good for 2, 3 months, then they
right.
slump down again. Um, so, and then the more often you do it, the more they look at an email that's a little bit odd and go, "That's one of them," and they click the report button, right?
Yeah,
So it's just in their minds. Um, with the reports, I think one of the things that we've done is made sure that we had something on the back end of those. If you start doing this all the time, you need to get tons of reports, and you either need a product or some automation workflows you build yourself to deal with those reports and make like a quick analysis decision. Is this bad? Should this be pulled? Do it right away. No intervention needed for myself. If it's kind of bad, create a ticket. Someone will look at it. If it's not bad at all, it's just spam. Maybe we block them if they spammed a whole bunch of people. If not, just delete from the mailbox, whatever. Like it's not nothing really to worry about. No one needs to know any further because you will start getting a lot of people just reporting any unsolicited email that there's nothing
yeah,
malicious there. It's just, well, I wasn't expecting it. Uh, One of the things that we're training people, because I've seen it a lot in the public sector, mostly because we deal with a bazillion vendors when I was working there, is vendors getting their M365 hacked and then continuing a email discussion, a thread from the past. Oh, here's your invoice. And that's malicious. So you can't even rely on like, I wasn't expecting this. Because it's like, no, I talk to this person once a week.
yeah,
So they're always a step ahead,
yeah. And I think that
unfortunately.
I've seen that more and more where, looks legit, everything is legit. You'd mentioned, about the negative reinforcement versus positive, and it sounds intuitive and probably common sense, but I think it's important to note and just highlight again is those programs, the awareness programs that have the phishing emails, is to gauge sort of a general level of awareness versus kind of pass fail. This guy's doing great, this guy's doing poorly. It's about, keeping it top of mind, because a couple of the recent ones that I've seen for the phishing emails, they do look clever, they do look legit, but there's always one or two little things. And at the end of the day, the negative reinforcement, and I've seen it myself, is that if you keep slapping people's wrist, they stop even thinking for themselves and they just say, "Hey, Mark, is this legit? Is this legit? Is this legit?" So you kind of take away from their confidence and their ability to make good decisions. The whole point of cyber awareness is for people to be more comfortable. The world is, full of bad actors and doing the malicious things. You do have to be aware, and you almost have to live in a paranoid world of, is this right or is it not? Um, but you have to be more confident in being able to do that and understanding that. So that's part of it, is just, having confidence in your job to be able to detect that. And at the end of the day, I mean, the advice that I give everybody is, even if it seems strange at all, contact the user through a known good communication path. That, if nothing else, like you say, if it came from a trusted partner and you kind of go, "Hey, looks a little bit odd," it may trigger them to say, "Uh-oh, I didn't know that was going on." So, they can start looking into their systems, because the problems just propagate themselves because they're just getting so clever at it. I mean, it's such a well-funded industry. I mean, how do we expect, everybody to be able to stay ahead of the game? So so a lot of what we're talking about is kind of what we do as sort of security practitioners, how we use these tools. Part of what we want to do, and one of the challenges is to you as a business owner of, pick a topic, anything. You understand and you hear about cybersecurity in the news. We've got the London drugs breach. We've got several of those that impact a lot of people. And there still seems to be that general sense that, it happens to other people, it doesn't happen to me. If you were to talk to a business owner today, what would you tell them as far as, are you a target? Aren't you a target? What should you do?
I think everyone's a target, and it's just a matter of time eventually. I've heard that too. I've also heard, well, Microsoft gets hacked. What am I going to do? Like, how
Yeah,
am I going to stop them? It's like, well, there's a lot more benefit in hacking Microsoft. I think as a business owner, part of your job is to manage risk, right? And this is why you and I don't like blindly following compliance, because it doesn't build you an understanding of the risk in your organization. So, if I've usually asked a few questions. So if what in your business could you not live without? So either you'd go under, people would stop working with you, you wouldn't be able to do your job, no one would be able to work. What 4 or 5 things would damage or destroy your business if they weren't available, if they weren't public, or were destroyed?
right.
And that usually gets people thinking, oh, I have that client database. If that got out to a competitor, that would be bad. And if that was unavailable and destroyed, that would be bad. It's like, okay. Oh, there's this machine that runs all our computer that, has all the drawings and all the data for our CNC machines to build all of our products and all our engineering diagrams and expertise. It's like, well, what's that worth to you? And then you can go down from there. What sort of, if that was unavailable tomorrow and it took you a week to get back up, how much would that cost? As far
Right.
as reputational damage, lost sales, everything else. And they think about it and you go, okay, can we spend a tenth of that
Yeah.
annually to make sure that that doesn't happen? Because that's where they're going. They're not stupid, right? Like, you know, uh, video game studios get hit and they go right for the code. They figure out where they're in and what they're doing, what they just got access to through an open firewall. And they're like, well, what would they have?
Right.
Like, what can they not live without? What will they pay me to get back? So that's sort of the way I typically frame that question. If people aren't interested, they aren't interested. They're just going to have to get hit first, and that happens too, right? Both you and I have reached out to people and be like, I don't think so, and a year or two later, they're like, hey, do you do
Yeah.
cleanup?
I know. And that's the worst part. That's why, everything that we do, we try to get on the other side of it for the prevention side of things. But sometimes you do have to get hit, and hopefully it's just a little, shot over the bow where it's easily recovered. But in many cases, and I think people lose sight of this, is that, if it is a ransomware attack, which is the most common attack out there, and it's very, very much a sophisticated attack where, you can do it. Ransomware as a service is a thing where people will, get a list of emails, and that's really all they need to do, because everything else is kind of a subscription where the experts go in and do the rest. So they plant the tools, they do the reconnaissance, they look to see what you are, who you are and how much your revenue is. They know all of that before they even, by the time you see the red screen of death or whatever the latest games are, they're just letting you know that they've been in there and they already have the information that they need, so they know what it is, and they'll do a ransom amount that is somewhat palatable. So they want to encourage you to pay, and from what I understand, and we'll cover this off in some future videos with some of the guys that are in the remediation side of things, they actually have good customer service. It is a business, and they try to make it, inflict damage, but not too much that you're going to go to business. So there's a bit of complacency that comes with that. But at the end of the day, if you're not prepared, if you don't understand it, and if you don't know sort of what the implications will be, like you mentioned, if you did get breached and you lost all that data, what does it mean? How do you recover from it? You have to understand all of that stuff. So at least as a business owner what risks you're willing to take, what risks you can cover under cyber insurance, or use third party, move it off to a third party liability where you just sort of pay on that. But it's still, those decisions have to be made, and you can't do them unknowingly. You can't just sort of sit back as a business owner and just hope, because hope is not a plan.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things is like your job as a business owner is to understand this risk. It's your money. It's your inheritance. It's your family's money after you're gone. Like, how are you going to protect this?
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't understand the risk, that's a bad spot to be in. If we do a bit of the work and we understand the risk and you're like, I'm just going to get insurance, I don't think this will happen, I'm fine. And they're willing to accept that risk, fine. At least they went in knowingly. They still might be wrong, but at least they
Yep.
went in knowingly. But you can't be in this position where I don't know. I don't know what I have. I don't know what it would cost me. And I don't know how people might get to it. It's like, well, at least start there. Do that initial risk assessment. Find out what your crown jewels are, what the risks are, and how they're currently being protected. And then you can make that decision after that.
Yeah, exactly. So then you're sort of working towards the end game, because if you don't know that, it's inevitable. You're going to get hit. You're going to get, there's something bad's going to happen. Now, one of the challenges that we face when dealing with business owners, and being a business owner myself, it's about taking risks. It's about managing risk. And that risk profile changes over time as your business gets established, as you get more customers under your belt. So this cybersecurity isn't a one and done. It's a way of doing business. I think that, if there's a parting message that I can leave with everybody, is start to understand it, don't avoid it. AI will have an impact, good and bad. So, start to understand AI, which is what we're doing as a company. Is That's why we're doing some development to truly understand the capabilities, because the world is changing, and as we see things, progress more and more quickly with AI and other, sort of technologies, it's going to get tougher, and so we need to build this into a board level discussion. And as you've mentioned, there's a few things that, if you need a starting point, there's a starting point. So, I mean, your company does, Timberwolf does advisory services. We do. I think that if people are sort of still left with the question of where do we start, look up local companies that have, reputable name, and start with the discussions. And, certainly, I know Lighthouse is always here to be, somebody that we can talk to. We bring you guys in all the time to help with more complicated projects. And, there's an answer out there. It doesn't have to break the bank. It's going to, sort of fit the need of risk, manage your budget, fit into your business strategy, but it has to be a part of that. Any parting words, Mark, as we sort of run to the up on the time limit here?
Not really. MFA all the things.
MFA every week. I agree, and don't rely just on MFA and user awareness. Those would probably be the two sort of really, really key points, because the other stuff has been around for a while. So
yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Mark. If you have, we'll do more of this stuff. We'll probably start posting. This video will be recorded and posted on our Lighthouse website, lighthouseintegrations.com. We're probably going to start a few blogs this month as well, and invite you to participate in those as well. So
awesome.
Thank you very much, and everybody stay safe.